My son has no mouth, and yet he must eat. By username Edwardthecrazyman. His mother died giving birth to him, and I couldn't forgive him for that. If that makes me something rotten, then so be it. I wept dryly at her dying side, stunned, and as the doctors and nurses chided me out of my seat so as to attend to the paperwork for the mutant responsible for the death of the bloated woman lying in the plastic hospital bed in front of me. The doctors ushered her body away and brought me to the boy with ropey, tumorous skin covering his mouth. They assured me that a procedure to remove the fleshy patch keeping his mouth shut could be exercised, and they would just need me to sign off on it. So I did, and I handed them the cold and whimpering child with no mouth off to them. Excusing myself to the bathroom, the primary physician seemed to regard me with some understanding pity, but how could he? I stood in the bathroom, stomping my rubber soles against the solid tiles beneath my feet. The man looking back at me from the mirror seemed to be much smaller than I remembered. I'd been so red and boisterous and ready for the family life. Now the man there slumped his shoulders, and his hair seemed to be greasy and grey. His eyes, that of a stabbed bull in the arena, looking up and accepting death, terrified and darting. I briefly wondered what it would be like to kill myself. I could buy a gun, go home, paint the walls. This conclusion was wholly unreasonable, I know. This would only leave the boy alone in the world, though, more importantly, everyone would regard me as a poor parent. So, I was stuck. Adoption? Perhaps. Call it a grief-induced confusion if you want, but I prefer it being taken away on a wave of extremes. High tide, low tide, moving quickly between the proposition of acting as a good newly single father and being the bastard that ducks out when needed most. I was deeply sad. That is my only defense, and this sucks. After washing my face in the deep bowl of the hospital bathroom, I wandered back to the lime green hallway to press my face against the window of the nursery where my son lay. He rolled back and forth, twisting his small and inconsequential limbs in all directions with his eyes wide open in terror, nostrils flaring. He wished to belt out a scream like any other baby might, and yet was refused even that. The muffles came from him small. They cut him a new mouth, and as he healed, it was almost easy to ignore the jagged look of his lips. The doctors assured me that they would heal nicely with time, and that I would hardly be able to notice that they'd ever been sealed shut. I took my son home, and within the week I buried my wife. The funeral was brief and small. Baby did manage to cry out with its new found mouth on that day. So did I. I'd cry into my pillow as the small boy lay on the bed next to me. He would look up at me with curious blue milky eyes, and the world would fall away for a little while. Time went by, weeks even. One morning I awoke to my alarm and was stunned to find out that my baby wasn't crying from his crib. I could hear him struggling in his haphazard blankets, and I could tell he was attempting to muffle out a high-pitched babe scream. I darted to the crib, terrified that he was choking on something. As I looked down into the crib, I saw him staring up at me with those pleading blue eyes. He had no mouth. It sealed itself over again. His nostrils flared hysterically, and his soft feet kicked out below his twisting torso. I panicked. I took my child up in my arms and rushed him to the kitchen, phone in hand, ready to dial 911. I could feel the boy thrashing in my arms, and I almost dropped him, but abandoned the phone instead. The cell phone shot from my hand and slid across the kitchen tiles. He was gagging, and snot and vomit shot from his nose. The image of me holding a limp form of my dead baby in my outstretched hands shot through my mind, and I decided that that was not going to happen. It was quick enough work. I grabbed a long butcher's knife, I think, from the block on the counter and held him over the sink as I carved him a smile. Was I doing the right thing? The dam in his throat broke and the sink drain pulled with blood and vomit. I screamed, he screamed. I was terrified and sick to my stomach. I was immediately struck on how small I felt. This is what being a parent was like. Surely no one else in the history of the world ever had to perform such a macabre act on their infant. Tears streamed down my face, and as I patted him on the spine, and he choked up in the sink. Years passed. He would come to me in the morning. I would brush his hair neatly, straighten his shirt, cut him a new mouth for the day, and send him on his merry way. I would be lying if I said the thought of sending him to school with runny red lips didn't eat me up. Now, beyond his poor eating habits and his strange mouth problem, he is an absolute lovely child, I swear. I can't get that kid to eat anything though. Sometimes after I serve dinner, I find the contents of his plate in the trash. Although, he must be getting enough nutrition somewhere, because he doesn't seem to be wasting away. The first startling clue was when the dogs in the neighbourhood started going missing. It wasn't the craziest thing in the world, but seeing as we live in a rather upscale gated community, it was definitely odd to have a dog burglar on the prowl. Then, the dogs' mutilated corpses would be found in undeveloped portions of the community, or in sewer drains. Each of them had massive chunks of flesh taken from the bodies, as though they'd been dined on. Speculation of wild coyotes or mountain lions ran rife through the neighbourhood, and I was sure to keep a closer eye on the boy, so that he wouldn't be munched on by some wildebeest. I purchased a puppy for his 5th birthday, and he said something to me that chilled me to the bone. "Thank you, Daddy. I've been ever so hungry." I thought this was a strange quip, and nothing more initially. But I sleep with the dog in my bed these days, and as sometimes I can see my son giving the poor thing a sideways glance with a twinkle in his eye. I'm starting to begin to wonder whether or not he was born without a mouth for a reason. I don't know if I plan on giving him his smile this morning. Right, so I hope you enjoyed that narration. If you enjoyed the story, link will be in the description, but also I have to mention that Lucas Whorley, the person who wrote the story, that's his actual name. Ooh, that's how he wants to be addressed. And because saying Edward the Crazy Man is untrue, because his real name is Lucas Whorley. He's got a book in the description. There's an Amazon link. Buy the book. Apparently it's quite good, because I've read reviews and people who have read his book have told me it's very good. So if you like books, then buy it, I guess. You pieces of shit. Now subscribe and like for more narration. And there will be a poetry video coming out some point, either today or tomorrow. Well, technically it's tomorrow now, because it's midnight, because sleep schedule, what is that? Nobody knows. So yeah, go buy his book, links description, sub, Be a good person. Subscribe to me, please. I need the subs. I need validation. Oh God, please. I need validation. It's the only thing in life keeping me going.